Hi everybody, it's Ray here from Man City Fan TV. I'm still here in France, just outside Paris, and I'm doing a short video today regarding the Vincent Kompany injury situation. Now, I'm got to be mindful because we don't actually know the full extent of Vincent's injury, and we probably won't know for another week or so. But I think we need to consider the possibility that unfortunately he may have another interrupted season with us next year. Vincent injured himself in the last round of international friendlies a few days ago. He overstretched and he injured his groin. Now, after the match and the press conference, Roberto Martinez, the Belgian manager, he looked very down, kind of like they were fearing the worst but hoping for a miracle. Vincent's been scanned by now, and we won't know whether he's going to take part in the World Cup, probably until the last minute, because even though he's been included in the final squad, he can be withdrawn and a replacement can come in his place right at the last minute. When Vincent plays, he is still magnificent, he's majestic. He brings a calmness and assuredness to our defence. He helps other players relax and feel confident. And we've seen it time and time again where he's helped coax players through a game. He's still one of the best centre-backs in world football. But you've got to consider Vincent's injury record. In his first 7 seasons at City, he averaged 39 or 40 games every season. In his last 3 seasons, that's dropped down to just 19. Now that's across league games, League Cup, FA Cup and Champions League as well. We have to be concerned that Vincent might miss a large chunk of next season, the way he's missed a large chunks of the last 3 seasons. So what can we do? We can look within the club, see what we've already got. We have 3 good centre-backs already. Nicolas Otamendi, I think he had his best season ever for City last year. John Stones, until he was injured, he was absolutely fantastic last season. And Aymeric Laporte, he was chased by Pep, I think, for the last 18 months. I think he'll do really well once he's got a nice pre-season under him, a lot of coaching from Pep, and I think those 3 will look good going forward into next season. But 3 centre-backs isn't enough. What else have we got? Last season, we also had Tosin Adarabioyo in the squad, but he never played a single minute of Premier League football. I think he might have got a game or 2 or some time in the Cups, but that's it. I think Tosin is too young at 20 and inexperienced to be that 4th centre-back in case Vincent is injured long term. So what else have we got in the club? We've got Fernandinho, who last season occasionally played as a makeshift centre-back when desperately needed. So he could play as a centre-back, although obviously he's best off as in defensive midfield. But if he did play centre-back and we got Jorginho, then Jorginho could play Fernandinho's place and Fernandinho could play at the centre-back. Another alternative could be Kyle Walker. He's playing as one of the 3 defenders for England. But these 2, Fernandinho and Kyle Walker as a central defender, they're stopgaps. They're not really the best option because they've got much better positions elsewhere in the field. Naturally, if you do look for another central defender to purchase in the summer window, I think most of us would rather start with players who are either English or have been playing in England for a few years. Right now, Toby Alderweireld is rumoured to be of interest to Man United. He's 29 years old. I think we can safely say he's been one of the top defenders when fit in the Premier League in the last 2 or 3 seasons. He'll cost about £50 million, which we can afford. I'm not sure whether we'd go for a 29-year-old. Maybe it's a bit too old, but he's very well experienced and he would come in and serve us well for 3 or 4 years. We could revisit the Johnny Evans situation. Now, it was rumoured last summer that Pep was interested in Johnny Evans, and once again in January, rumoured that the price would have been about 25 to 30 million pounds. Don't know why we pulled out of that. I don't think it would have been just for the money, but Johnny Evans is already at least 30 years old. But with the West Brom's relegation, Johnny Evans is now available for £3 million, which is a bargain really in today's terms. Before the injury to Vincent, apparently Johnny Evans was of interest to Leicester City. It may be, depending on how severe Vincent's injury is, that we might go back and revisit Johnny Evans, and at £3 million he really is a snip, even if he is an ex-United player. Another Premier League option could be Harry Maguire. Now, he's had a quite meteoric rise in the last 2 or 3 years, from basically nowhere to being an England international and going to the World Cup. And so he's been mentioned by some City fans as another potential option. And he's, I think, young enough, and he's got a lot of potential. He's got many years ahead of him, so he's another possibility. But once again, he'll cost in the region of £50 million. We could look at some of the top European centre-backs, but sadly a lot of them are going nowhere. People like Rafael Varane, Umtiti at Barcelona, who's apparently just signed a new contract with a release clause of hundreds of millions of euros. Bonucci, that ship seems to have sailed. He's mentioned every year, but nothing ever happens. One other problem, one other issue with looking at European centre-backs is that we probably are at the limit of our non-homegrown quota that we can have in the Premier League squad, which is 17. And I think we're at 16 or 17 already. So if we wanted to get somebody, a European player not trained in an academy in England or Wales, then we probably have to let somebody else go. One way around this is to buy a young player who's under 21 years old, because for Premier League purposes they don't count as part of your squad. So you could get around the rules like that quite legitimately. One such player is De Ligt from Ajax. Now he's rumoured to be of interest to Spurs at around 45 to 50 million euros. He's only 18 years old, but he's already played for the Dutch national squad. So he is another option that we could consider, and we were rumoured a couple of months ago to be looking into him. One other major stumbling block might be the World Cup. Now, with some of the best players at the World Cup likely to be there for 3 or 4 weeks, it could be the middle of July before they're actually free to look at potential transfer options. That really doesn't give anybody much time to get a transfer over the line. With the transfer window closing before the season actually starts this year, that would give a club maybe 10 days, 14 days to conclude a complex transfer, which is really quite difficult to do. Now, I think we all hope that Vincent isn't seriously injured and that he can still represent Belgium at the World Cup, and he can do a fantastic job for Belgium. But if he is injured and we have to look elsewhere, I'm not really sure outside the club what we can do. You know, who is the best option? Is it Toby? Is it Johnny Evans? Harry Maguire? Somebody else? Please leave some comments down below, leave your thoughts, ask some questions, make some contributions, and we'll see you soon, Blues.